So your parents couldn't swim. You've now built the world's #1 swim coaching app. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, it means the world. I think when you spend so long doing something and you know that it's your parents' hard work that allowed me to be in that position, to be able to not only learn how to swim, but also share what I've accumulated over the last 2.5 decades. I think it's just, I'm relatively young, but I mean, this is my life's work, technically. So depending on how long I continue, I hope I can do it for a long time. It'll be something that I build and hopefully can stick around longer than me.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. I can't wait to get into it in this conversation. So your parents are originally from Damascus, Syria.
Yep.
But they moved to the US, which is where you were born. Just talk me through that decision for them. How did they make that decision and why did they move to the US?
Yeah, so my dad was actually getting his additional schooling. So he got his PhD in the United States, and he actually came to America first. He started his PhD, then he went back to Syria basically to get a wife. So he went back home. He met my mom. They got married, and then he brought her to the United States. And then they actually, it's interesting, they moved to Oklahoma. And so when I tell people this story, it makes a lot of sense now because when I explain it, I say that the vision of America was different 40 years ago than it is today, because today people know what you get in America. You go on social media, you can see it. 40 years ago, your perception is all from the movies and the news. So my mom thought she's moving to New York. So she's imagining skyscrapers, New York City, and they moved to Oklahoma. And so it's completely different. It's more secluded. But they eventually, found their routine. My older brother was born there. They moved to Michigan. I was born there. And so I spent most of my life growing up in the United States. And it's sort of weird because I had this multicultural background where, in my class, all the other kids, their parents were born in the United States. And I was the only one whose parents could speak a different language to them. And, my parents would pack me different food and just, certain cultural things were a little bit different. I mean, for the most part, I think they did their best to make sure that I felt normal. And I did feel relatively normal, but at the end of the day, I was a little bit different than everyone. And I think that's maybe part of my personality now and trying to be unique to myself and not really adapt to people for no reason.
Yeah, well, I guess it helps you build up a resilience from a young age, right? You don't know why people are treating you slightly differently, but of course they're going to because they're just seeing things that are different. And so just to be transparent and clear, so your parents didn't learn to swim because they were from the big city, right? There was no need to swim. Was that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. I mean, most people don't learn how to swim when you live in it's any city in the world. If you live in a major city, now it might be a little bit different. Also, there's socioeconomic parts of it. Like if you go to a private club that happens to have a pool, maybe that's when you'd learn how to swim. But it just wasn't a priority. It's still not a priority. If you go to Damascus, swimming is not that popular of a thing. There are other things that are more important on the agenda. And so, they didn't learn how to swim. They moved to the United States, and then it was just fitting. Just because they're well, everyone's learning how to swim. I guess we throw our kids in swimming lessons during the summer, and that's how I learned how to swim.
Which again was a way of them trying to help you fit in, right? They're saying, right, everyone's swimming in your class. Let's go to swimming. Let's see how you get on. And so what did swimming give you in those early days, more than just the sport and the activity? I'm assuming it gave you some sort of way to bond with people and maybe fit in slightly more with the American lifestyle.
Yeah, I think for me, it was the only thing that I actually became good at. And so I was pretty mediocre at everything. I tried other sports. I was in soccer. Even in school, academically, I don't think I was anything special. And size-wise, I wasn't a big person. I'm pretty average size. I was pretty small, actually, relative as a kid. And I was young for my grade. So I was actually on the smaller side. So I was pretty average at everything. And then I did swimming. And even though I wasn't phenomenal, because I was younger for my grade, the way they do swimming is they break you up by every 2 years. So if you're 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11, 12. So when I was 10 years old, I was swimming in the 10 and under division, and all my friends were 11 years old. And so they were swimming against, the big 12-year-olds. And so this was my moment to shine. And when I actually started to realize, oh, I'm actually pretty good at swimming because I won our community, recreational final in the 25-meter breaststroke. And I won every race that whole summer. I never lost a race. And so I started to realize I'm really good at this. And I started looking forward to the summer swimming season. And even though I wasn't that serious in the grand scheme of things because I didn't do it year round, and there were other kids that were doing it year round, I just found this is the thing that I can really improve myself. And because swimming is an individual sport, you don't depend on other people. So I built a lot of self-resilience, confidence, and I felt a lot of control in my outcome. And I think swimming and other individual sports are pretty unique in giving you that opportunity where you have so much more control over what your destiny is.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting what you touched on there about, you being the oldest in that age group, giving you that sort of drive, because it's the same thing with racehorses, for example. A racehorse won't run its absolute fastest until another racehorse comes alongside it. And it will find that extra little bit. And it's the same in business, right? So if you're starting to do well and people are looking at you, you start to go, oh, I can do more. I can push a bit harder here. This is working. And I'm assuming at an early age, when you're 10 and you're put in the class where you're the oldest, you're probably one of the biggest, you then start to have these little inklings where you're like, I'm winning. I'm doing well. And that drives you on and on and on. And I wonder how long what that gave you at an early age to be like, I'm actually winning. I'm on this winning streak. Can you remember that and explain that to us?
Yeah, they've actually done studies on this, and they do it for, I was mentioning age. So, depending on the month that you're born in, it actually impacts your performance because of, what grade you end up being in. And they've done these studies, and it's like a healthy balance. You want to be competitive with other people, but you don't want to be at the bottom of the food chain all the time because it kills your confidence. And so for me, when I think back when I was 10, that was just enough to like feed my little 10-year-old ego at the time to be like, yeah, you're good. Like, keep going. When maybe you don't have as much self-belief. And so when you realize like, oh, I can be pretty good at this if I just stick with it. And like, I'm seeing progress and I'm improving. I think the same as business. Like, you want to be around people who are maybe similar to you or maybe doing a little bit better than you. But if you're significantly disconnected from the people that you're in the room, whether you're way bigger than them or way smaller than them in business or outcomes or whatever you're doing, it's actually a little intimidating and it can be discouraging. So I think you want to have this healthy balance of being pushed and being encouraged, but also knowing that like there's still more room to go.
And that's what you see in the best athletes, right? You see that they're around people that are maybe just 1 or 2 steps ahead. There's no point in putting you at 10 years old in the pool with Michael Phelps because you're just going to go, this is ridiculous. Yeah. I was just going to mention that I was wondering in my mind if there's any data on this, but I think you're probably going to disprove me that if you're born in the spring, for example, you then got a whole summer probably of swimming and being outside. Whereas if you're born in the winter, you're less likely. But I know you're born in October, right? Yeah. And you did a lot of swimming. And the US is in the same hemisphere as the UK, so I'm assuming I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think there's probably our numbers behind that. I don't happen to have them. But yeah, I think more significant is like the city that you're born in actually for swimming, because you could be in a community where this is really important. Similarly, you could expand that to entrepreneurship. You could grow up in an area where a lot of people are entrepreneurs and success is encouraged and taking risk and certain types of risk. For example, if you grow up in Silicon Valley, I mean, you're surrounded by technology and incubation and high risk. And, I think like 25% of the whole workforce is in technology. So you're around it. You know what that looks like, whether you want to pursue that or not. And if you're born in a different area, maybe oil and gas or farming or some other thing is the norm. So I do think that actually has a significant factor in where you grow up.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. So you started coaching swimming when you were 17.
Yep.
What do you think it was that you saw in the pool that other people weren't seeing? Because I've heard you mention before that you feel like you were quite analytical about the way that you were swimming by the age of 12. You could understand things that you were doing biomechanically, but also looking at the data that other people weren't doing. And 17 is quite young to start coaching. So I'm interested in how that came about and why you became so good at seeing what was going wrong with other people.
I was such a nerd growing up. I mean, I compare myself to others my age. I knew everyone's time in every event on the team better than they knew it themselves. And I was analytical, not just because I was like nerdy about it, but because, like I mentioned, I wanted to see how I could improve. And so I felt a lot of ownership. And I've always seen myself more as a coach and not even as like an athlete. Like even now, like I'm sure I'm an athlete. I go and I compete and I work out and stuff. But I always look at things from the, how do I optimize the outcome? And how do I look at ways to improve this? I can even remember when I was 14, I went to a relatively big local swimming competition. And I was there just as a spectator. And I remember seeing all the swimmers and they're having a great time. It was like a club championship thing. And I remember seeing the coaches. And it wasn't an envy, it was like an inspiration, like I want to be where they are. And I was thinking about it from that perspective when I was 14. It wasn't like I want to compete in this competition. It was I want to be the swim coach that's leading these kids. And I remember vividly this moment and seeing the whole facility. And it wasn't that I wanted to compete, it was that I wanted to coach.
Wow. See, I wonder where that comes from, because loving the data and stuff makes complete sense with being an entrepreneur. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you later on, but you've already answered it, was, do you see yourself more as an athlete or a sort of founder slash coach? And, you said you're more of the coach side, and that entrepreneurial, analytical mind makes complete sense. But I'm interested in, was it the authority that you wanted of the coach? Was it just to help other people? Do you know what drove that need or desire to help people get better rather than just do it for yourself?
I think I need some psychoanalysis sessions here to really understand that. Even the way you were describing it, I think that might be part of it, in that I wanted to have some level of authority and impact and be able to contribute to a large group of people. I think that's part of it. I think another part of it is I felt qualified. Like I knew that I was looking at things from a different perspective that could add a lot of value to people. And I knew that I was different from most other swimmers at that age, and that I knew I could deliver on that value. And I think another part of it, which may need some unpacking, is maybe my own insecurity or lack of confidence that I could be the best athlete. And so I had this unreasonable rationalization at the age of 14 to know that I wasn't going to the Olympics, to know that it wasn't feasible for me to achieve these things as an athlete. But if I was a coach, there was no limit to what I could do.
Wow, that's really, really high level thinking for someone at 14, to understand that, because you didn't have a coach saying you're not going to the Olympics. You didn't have a bad experience with a coach.
No, I didn't. And a lot of that's fuel for fire for a lot of people.
Yeah.
When the coach or instructor is like, you're never going to amount to anything. I never had that. On the opposite, actually, because I think of my personality, a lot of people thought, oh, you're going to go to the Olympics. Like, keep going. You're so good. So much so, there was this dude at the pool. He was like a 75-year-old guy. He was swimming back and forth, and he was like a family friend. And he would tell me, he would see me swimming. He's like, we're gonna be proud of you, like 2020 or whatever the Olympics was, that kind of made sense. And I told him, yeah, I don't think that's realistic. Like I was telling him, like, they're telling me you're going to the Olympics. I'm like, well, realistically, I don't think so, but I enjoy swimming.
Yeah. Okay, so I really want to get into the swimming side of things. Before we move past this, I don't want you to dumb down at all your ability, right? Because let's talk about the level you got to, because before you coached for Team USA and built the business, you did get to a very, very high standard of swimming, right, in college and throughout those years. And if you don't mind, for people listening, how tall are you?
5'9".
Is that an average for a high-level swimmer?
No.
So what is a normal swimmer? They're taller, right?
Honestly, the taller the better. I mean, if you think about it, so simple physics, momentum equals mass times velocity. Mm-hmm. So if you increase mass, assuming you don't just get fat, if you can maintain your slim physique, basically the taller you are, the faster you're going to go. You're going to carry more momentum.
So who's the best swimmer of all time?
Well, Michael Phelps.
And how tall is he?
He's 6'4".
6'4", and his wingspan is?
Like 6'7".
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Now, and the thing is, a lot of people need to understand this about swimming versus other sports. A lot of the best athletes or the tallest people, they don't choose swimming. They became basketball players because at age 12, even if they did swimming, or even at 10, the prospects, the notoriety, the potential earnings, everything is better in basketball. So like we don't see the best athletes, like some of the best basketball players or other sports, they could have been the best swimmers. And so in swimming, you see maybe 6.5 feet tall, 6'6", 6'4". This is normally the top end. There are some swimmers who are 6'7", 6'8", but like the 6'10s and the 7 foot tall, they're doing basketball.
They'd be faster. They would be better though
if they just dove in and had the same mechanics. You can't argue against physics.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. How old, just as a tangent, how old do you think people should start swimming? Whether they want to be an athlete or just to learn?
You should learn as soon as possible, under the age of 1.
Really, just throw them in.
Throw them in the water with some supervision.
Yeah.
Obviously.
What are the benefits of doing it that young?
So you're not going to be as fearful of the water, because one challenge, if you wait until 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on the interactions with the parents and the environment, the kid actually may be terrified of the water. Normally that's it's taught, like observed, either the parents have a fear or the way they talk about and, move you around the water, a swimming pool, a lake, an edge. So the earlier you start, not only do you lower the risk of just unnecessary fear for no reason, but also you build a feel of the water that the later you get, it becomes harder and harder. It's like learning a language.
Yeah.
If you learn a language when you're 2, it's going to be better than learning at 22. And swimming is the same thing. It just gets pretty much exponentially harder the older you get.
We were talking before we started recording about, I can't remember when I first was taught to swim, but I know that I love swimming and I'm okay at it.
Yeah.
And I remember going with my mum every week to a swim club from the age of 18, but I also went with my brother. It must have been about 8 or 9, but I'm sure we would have been taught to swim at 2 or 3. But I'm going to ask her. I'm sure.
Yeah, you probably started, like normally people start between 4, 5, 6. Like I started when I was 5, and we were looking at old VHS tapes, and I saw the first time I ever dove off of a diving board, and it was funny because I didn't actually dive. The lifeguard is there holding my arms, like the swim instructor, and just kind of like drops me into the water, and there's another swim instructor to like catch me. But hey, I was in the deep end.
Yeah, and it felt like the world was yours when that happened.
Yeah, and the amount of confidence that I had on the diving board, and I'm like bouncing around. They're like, okay, wait, like we got to come on board. So I think for fear, I was one of those people that's just fearless.
Yeah.
Some kids at age 5, they're crying, and I saw it in the video. The girl after me, she was not having a good time.
Okay, so let me take you back. Let me take that tangent all the way back again. So you got into college.
Yep.
I want to hear about some of the races, some of the distances. What was your specialist distance and your specialist stroke for a start?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I realized I was good at breaststroke.
Okay.
And part of that actually, when you think about size, this is the one stroke that normally you'll see the shorter people or the people who are not as massive.
Adam Peaty these days.
Adam Peaty is massive, but yes, that's his stroke.
Oh, is he?
He's like 6'3". He's pretty big guy. Yeah. But like you'll see before Adam Peaty, so the guy who had the world record in the 100 breaststroke and the 200 breaststroke, this guy from Japan who I'm a little bit bigger than. So, and he was my idol growing up. So, Peaty's just a little bit younger than me, but this other swimmer from Japan, he was the guy that everyone was looking at. He was the world's best swimmer in breaststroke. And it gave me even more confidence, to kind of like self-fulfilling, like, look, he can do it, and he's way smaller than a lot of the other guys, and he's winning on technique efficiency. He has absolutely flawless technique. If he were a little bigger, he probably would have been even faster. But anyway, he was amazing. So when I went to college, that was my main discipline. It was breaststroke, 100 breaststroke, 200 breaststroke. And then college was a grind, man. It was just the amount of training that we would do. I think I learned so much about like what hard work looks like, what dedication looks like, discipline. Even before I went to college, I mean, I was swimming a lot. I was on a team, we were doing a lot of hard workouts. But when I got to college, it was like a whole nother level. And quite frankly, now, anytime I do anything, it's not as hard as what I did then. Whether it's business, whether it's, I just went to a 1-week training camp in the Maldives. Like we were doing double workouts. Like it was a ton of fun. But it's like a joke next to what I was doing in college. Like in terms of like training intensity. I mean, and you have to be like, you can't just throw anyone into 20 hours a week of hard training. Like you have to build up to that. But I still felt like I was thrown into it, just because to go from 10 hours a week to 20 hours a week of high intensity, and I started coaching swimming and university life. So my body was taking a toll, and in some ways it burned me out physically. But I do think over that 4-year grind, I mean, now everything feels maybe not easy, but not as difficult.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting that that's the intensity. And I don't know why in my mind I would have thought swimming would be different to anything like running or CrossFit or weightlifting, but of course it's not. It's the reps and it's the constant progression, isn't it? I'm interested, and we won't stay on this for too long because you've got enough videos. You've got nearly 1 million subscribers on YouTube. You've got the new book here, How Not to Drown. But are there a couple of things, techniques or things to think about if you're listening now, if people are into swimming, before we move on to the business side of things? What should they be thinking about to improve their time in the water, their stroke, their efficiency? What are the main core principles we can take?
First of all, you have to make sure that you have a good routine that you can actually stick to. Okay. The biggest problem people have is they'll go swimming for, okay, I'm committed, swimming, let's go. And they'll do that for 2 or 3 weeks. And then they'll stop swimming for 2 or 3 weeks. And then they're like, oh yeah, I should get back into swimming. This is maybe one of the worst things that you can do, because you're not going to build any feel. So even if you develop your skills, your endurance, it's not going to last. And so swimming, unlike a lot of other sports, you lose your technique and feel more quickly because it's not something that you do naturally. Mm-hmm. Running, on the other hand, you're still going to go for a walk. Like you're still going to get in 5,000 steps. In swimming, you're not going to take any arm strokes if you don't swim. So step number 1 is like figure out a routine that you can actually stick to. And a big mistake a lot of people make is they do too much too soon. So they're like, okay, swimming routine, let's go. And whether they download our app or do their own thing, they swim too much. Like a big mistake people have is thinking, okay, I got to get in the laps. I got 30 minutes. Let me swim as much as I can in that 30 minutes. And this is one of the worst things that you can do.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, and a lot of people do this. And if you can stick with it, great. The problem is most people can't. And then you plateau really quickly. So a better way to structure your time is to think, okay, step 1 is how often can I swim and how much time can I allocate? Let's say 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Great. That doesn't mean we're going to swim 30 minutes straight 3 times a week. It means we're going to have a structured approach with variety that's going to incorporate different distances. So even if you can swim for 30 minutes straight, I don't want you to. I want you to swim for 100 meters, then we're going to take a break. Then we're going to do it again. then we're going to take a break. We're going to do that 10 times. We're going to mix in some other strokes. We're going to add in some equipment like fins, paddles, snorkel. We're going to do some drills. And then once we can do that, we're going to add in interval training. So we do 100 meters on a time and then do it again and then repeat. And that's what we do with the MySwimPro app. We do all of that for you. But the reason why that's important is because that's what's going to allow you to improve and not waste your time in the water, which is the mistake that I see people make over and over again.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned the app there. So MySwimPro, which I think I'm right in saying is the world's largest swimming coaching business. And it has the app, which was voted by Apple #1 app in the world.
Yep, app of the year.
App of the year, sorry. Unbelievable. And it got you the sort of accolade of Forbes 30 under 30, right, for this business and your co-founder.
Yeah.
So this is an incredible business, and I'm so interested in the whole thing. And it's an app that I'm pretty sure I've downloaded in the past, and I'm definitely going to get it again. Because you've also got, is it MyTriPro? Is a triathlete?
We've launched a few different things.
Yeah.
We had a triathlon. We actually don't have that anymore.
Okay, sorry.
So no, it's good. So I mean, that's part of the business journey, right? So over the last 10 years, we've launched different offers. We've had to pull back some things. A lot of it comes down to focus. So, we're trying to dominate the swimming category, and, triathlon is a great market, and there are different products we have to compete with in there. And then the pandemic hit. That's actually why we shut down the app, to try and focus on so many different things. But yeah, the app was and still is the core part of our business.
Yeah, and it's had more than 2 million downloads, right? And it's an incredible thing. I'm interested to hear from you. Do you think that by being an athlete, then becoming a coach, it has made you or helped you to understand what it means to be coachable, which is then one of the factors that has helped you grow your business to such extraordinary heights, because you're very good at being coached and taking things on and taking action and being resilient, as we touched on from your childhood in the US?
I think being coachable is really important. And I think the more important skill is actually knowing what areas you need coaching in and which areas you need to stick to your guns. So for example, in my category of swimming, I'm very knowledgeable about that area. It really wouldn't make sense for me to seek coaching to learn more about swimming. This is an area that is my core competency, and I should do my own diligence and be that expert. There are other areas in business or finance or hiring people, and these are things that maybe I've never done before. And so I need the coaching there. So I think as important it is to be coachable, you need to know where you need the coaching, because I will still get feedback in areas that I don't need the feedback. And having, I think, the self-awareness of where you need that support is really important. And a mistake that I've made myself, where I think, I need to get advice. This person knows what they're talking about, so let me get their advice. No, actually, I don't, because their advice is coming from a context that's not relevant to me. And I have more context in these areas than they do. And so I don't really actually need to listen to their feedback. So it's a balance, because if you're almost too coachable, then you won't be able to make your own decisions, because everyone's going to tell you something different, and you got to be able to distill all of that information and then choose the right path that makes sense for you. And if you're not coachable, then you're not going to listen to anyone, and you're not going to learn and grow.
Yeah. So how do you define who is or what is something worth listening to? Because we touched on, you've been to a big mastermind recently that we've both heard of, or you've been to, of course. And you were on a table of people that didn't have businesses very relevant to you. And therefore, I'm assuming, whilst they're lovely people and you could learn something from them, you wouldn't want to be coached by them. So how do you define, okay, this is an area I'd like to work on and I should be open to coaching in it, but by who? How do you work all that out in your mind or with your co-founder?
Right. I think you have to really take a step back and understand, where are you now and where do you want to go? And if the people who are giving you advice are not where you want to go and they haven't been where you currently are, it's difficult to apply what they're even saying and even have good context as to what they're saying, because their background is different than yours. So the most specific and valuable advice is someone who is ahead of where you are and they came from where you've been and where you are right now. And so I think a big mistake that I made in the past is thinking too critically about, should I be following this advice? Of course, because they're really successful, right? But they made their success in an area that I'm not looking to grow in. And if I don't want to have that person's specific type of success or their lifestyle, or maybe there's something morality-wise I don't agree with. And so the way that they got there is not the path that I'm looking for. You have to make these decisions. And I've become a lot more clear over the last 5 or 10 years as to what path makes sense for me.
I think it's great advice. I've been very aware of this over my journey, where quite often in the same way, you look at someone who's done something and you ask them for advice and you think this is going to really help me, but you're not looking between the lines. You're not looking at they've got a massive following or an amazing network or they've got funding. There's always something that you'll miss, and you think, they're pointing at this as the way they got there, but they're probably just trying to sell you something, or they're probably trying to create a referral. And you've got to be so careful that they're actually being honest and integral with you.
Right.
When you finished college, you worked at a couple of tech startups, right? And you sat between two very influential people in this business. I'm interested in what you learned from those businesses that you were then able to use when you were asked to be a coach and then decided, I'm actually going to turn this into your business.
Yeah, that's actually a great point, because before I started this company, I had worked at 4 different startups. 2 of them were venture-backed. 1 was a nonprofit. 1 was a physical product. And so to be able to sit next to the founders of these companies is invaluable. Yeah. Now, the one area that I lack experience is actually working for a massive company and seeing the pros and cons of that environment. Because when I look back now, and I have a lot of friends who work at these large companies, one thing that is very clear to me now, but I didn't realize at the time, is that when you work with the founder, you see what execution actually looks like. It's not about, let's talk about this thing, and then let's schedule another meeting to talk about it. It's like, if we're gonna do something, we do it right now. We don't need to wait until tomorrow. We don't need to have another meeting about it. We just go and do it. And this is like the doer mindset and mentality. And it's something that I had growing up. And I think maybe it's good that I didn't work at a very big company and sort of get like brainwashed and sort of dilute the absolute doer in me. But by working with these other founders and just being like literally in the chair next to them, you see what this looks like. You hear the conversations, and not only the rate of speed, but the standard that you have to hold yourself to. Because when you work in a bigger group of a company or people, let's say you have 5 people, if someone doesn't carry their weight, it's only 1 in 5. So there's 4 other people who are carrying their weight, let's say. When you're a 1 of 1, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And so the bigger the organization, let's say now you have 500 people, someone could literally not show up and no one would even notice. And so the impact's not going to be there. When you have a team of 5 and someone doesn't show up, on day 1, you feel it a little bit. Day 2, you feel it. And you're running at 80%. So it's a big difference when you have a smaller team. So I think these are some of the biggest things that I learned.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. That's something that I think I really missed out on. I went from university, masters, and then I went and worked at a Fortune 500 company. So there's 5,000 people, they're doing billions in revenue. And so there's so many people that my job almost became, it literally did become in product, going from meeting to meeting. So you decide something's going to happen. You get sign off from some directors. You then tell a dev team, can you deliver this? Tell a UX team, can you deliver this? Come back to the meeting the next week and it's been done or it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't done, it wasn't like that for me.
Right.
There was a team of hundreds, if not thousands, that could help us move things forward. And so when I started my own business, I was like, right, that's the decision. Who's doing it? Oh, it's me. Yeah. I've got to do it. And so I think that's a great bit of advice there, totally. That someone listening who's not moving the needle much, it's like, what are you actually doing to move that needle yourself?
And not only that, it's about your proximity to the people that are doing the executing. So I think for me, I was sitting next to them, and you've seen those videos on YouTube, the day in the life vlog with an operator. Now, a lot of that is kind of for show, but there is some truth when you watch some of these CEOs and they're documenting their day, and it's like, meeting after meeting, conversations, execution, then they go film this thing. And even though they're kind of splicing together the most optimal routine, if you compare their day compared to someone who's working at a massive Fortune 100 company, they're just hanging out. Their time is not really that valuable. They're just kind of doing their own thing. I think the closest thing to this, because not everyone can just go and shadow a CEO and know what they're doing. I think the closest thing to this, though, is seeing what a very fit person, what they do in the gym. And I've noticed this, even I think about my swimming background. Like I was around people who were swimming and they're pretty fast. And then I went to college and I saw what real hard work looks like. I saw people that were putting their body on the line and vomiting at the end of the session. And when you look at their performance, there's a big difference. When you go to the gym and you see how someone who's absolutely shredded and you see how they work out, and then you see someone who's not very fit and you look at how they work out and they're just walking on the treadmill, it's like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
So I think that's the closest thing that, business is the same thing. I'm just kind of sitting at my computer, check an email here and there, download this spreadsheet, work in Excel. And then you see an A player and you see them just cranking through work, how they do a sales call. It's completely different.
It's literally exercise versus training, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like someone like Charlie Johnson, who we both know, you know that he trains. He's working, but also he's training hard, right? He's not going in there and wasting that hour and a half. He's working towards set, same as you're swimming. Like you're progressively moving forward. You're doing 100 meters, not a mile as quick as possible.
Yeah, you look at, I mean, the heart rate in working out, it's like, if you're just walking on the treadmill, your heart rate's going to be at a certain level. If you're doing high intensity interval training, you're doing a HIIT workout, you're doing F45, whatever the thing is, your heart rate's spiking to 170, then it's down to 120, you're dripping sweat, you've got a muscle pump. It doesn't look the same. In business, it's the same. It's the exact same thing. It's like, oh, I'm just going to work. This person's building an empire. They don't look the same.
Yeah, I completely agree. Fares, I'm interested in how you came up with the idea for MySwimPro, because I know that you were already coaching whilst you're at these startups. Mm-hmm. And I believe I think I've heard this story before, but I'd love you to share it with the listeners, where someone was going away and they asked you to design a training program and you said, I'm not going to do it as a one-off. I may as well take all this tech knowledge and turn it into your story.
You gave a pretty good synopsis, but I'll put it in my own words. Yeah, the founding story of MySwimPro is not too different from a lot of founding stories in the sense that I was solving a problem that I was experiencing myself and I was immediately aware of. And so what I was observing is this woman who was in need of coaching. She had a very clear problem, and I was in the perfect position to solve this problem for her. So she wanted a workout plan, and I knew how to deliver on that. The difference is I knew how to apply technology to scale that problem to lots of people, so I could help not only her, but I could help millions of people in a similar way. And I think that's where, productizing a value proposition is the skill of an entrepreneur, as opposed to a lot of other people in my situation would have thought, oh, that's great, I'll write you a swim workout. I immediately thought, how can I create a software application that can solve this problem for you and 10 million people at the same time? And so that's what we went ahead and created.
Which is just such a cool way of looking at it, right? Why not solve the bigger problem rather than just, here you go, here's a PDF, you'll get good results. Try and add value to more people, right? There's a bigger purpose there. How did you feel when you got the letter or the email saying that Forbes wanted to give you the accolade of Forbes 30 under 30 in the tech category, which is such a competitive category, especially in the US? Yeah,
it was amazing. I think when you're named Forbes 30 under 30, it carries some weight to it because you feel that in some way you've made it into this group of people who have done something significant. You have a little bit of imposter syndrome because you see some of the people that are on the list, and they have other categories. So you have all these like celebrities that are on it, and like everyone knows who these people are, and like who am I to be on this list, whether it's technology or in the media space or whatever it may be. So I think it was a little bit of that, but also like reassurance that like, hey, I've actually been working towards something, and this is just one external validator, but I actually don't even need it because I feel confident that whether I was on this list or not, I'm still going to do the exact same thing. It's not like I made it to the Forbes list and now I'm going to completely change everything that I do. It didn't necessarily like validate or invalidate what I was already doing. It was more of like a nice pat on the back and additional encouragement to keep pushing, maybe push even harder. And I think it's just more on the journey of inspiring others because, my background's not anything that special. I didn't go to the Olympics in this category, but I was able to create a product that helps people, and it's great to see that recognition. So you can do it too.
I think it's brilliant. It's such a cool story. How do you think, looking back now, how do you think you would advise someone to take something as personal as coaching and turn it into such a scalable digital asset?
Well, first of all, you need to think if you should actually do that because you want to solve a problem. I think a big mistake that a lot of people make, and myself included in our business, is we try and create solutions for problems that don't actually exist. So the closer you are to the problem, the better, because you understand it and you can see the problem. If you can do customer discovery and you can talk to people, other people like the avatar or the potential client that you have, like, how can I solve this problem for them? Is there a way I could scale this through either technology, productization, figure out a way to package this so it's not just going to help this one person, but it's going to help multiple people. And so that could be a software app. It might already exist, and that's where you don't want to step foot in this direction of like, oh, I'm going to build this whole company, it's going to be amazing. And there are 17 different things that do the exact same offer, the same value prop. So ideally, if you're in the category, and whether it's coaching or any other niche, you already know what those 17 are. And so you know what they're really good at and what they're missing. And so it's your job, if you want to go down the entrepreneurial route, of identifying the lack of innovation in this category. So you see the problem, and this problem could be addressed more efficiently, more quickly, cheaper, faster. Whatever it may be, you have to find your value. And then you have to actually go do that, and don't get distracted by just copying what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, I'm really interested in what that value was. Like, what did you think was missing back in the early days in 2015, 2014? Because I imagine as well that the technology that you could leverage then is very different to the technology you could have now. Because Apple Watch is a thing now. I'm presuming it wasn't, or it was very early back
exactly.
then.
Yeah. So this is amazing, because the dynamic of entrepreneurship is different now because of technology and AI, and in 10 years from now, it'll be very different, and we don't know what that's going to look like. So when I started the company, the value proposition was, I would say, two things. It was personalization and ease of access. Okay. So ease of access, because if you wanted to get a workout, it was difficult over 10 years ago. You had to, troll the internet, go to Reddit, find some random Twitter post by Bob Bowman, Michael Phelps' coach, and then try and piece together, so the ease of access was not there, right? You got to try and find a coach. It's expensive. That was one problem. The other is the personalization. Okay, great. I found Michael Phelps' workout, but that's not personalized to me because I'm not him. And so being able to create a technology that can democratize it and make it easy that you just download it, can't get easier than that, and then to be able to see it and then use the software to personalize it. So there's different levels, I have different goals, different speeds. That was the value proposition before. Now, everything I just described, AI can do. So ease of access, I don't think it's very hard to get in touch with a large language model. Personalization, I mean, that's the whole value of AI, is being able to create a personalized value prop. So now the value of what we focus on is real-time coaching. The AI is not going to be in the pool with you. The AI is not on your watch telling you exactly what to do, giving you your real-time heart rate, giving you that kind of feedback and analysis. So even though there is value in the ease of access, you download the app, you get a personalized workout, all this stuff, that is valuable. It's just becoming less valuable as we progress in the arc of technology adoption. And so now we focus more on real-time coaching. And the newest way that we're doing this is with our in-person events. Because when you can connect with another human in real life, the robot doesn't exist yet. And even in 5 years, when there are robots running around and who knows what the world is going to look like at that point, it's still different having a conversation with a real human. Doing it, especially with swimming, it's physical. Going to the pool, having that tactile feedback where a human's actually touching your hand, telling you what to do, that emotion, that feeling, that is, I think, the future of a lot of industries, actually, because everything else is being commoditized by a robot. And if you're in denial about that, it's just a matter of time before you flip over to the other side and you realize it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's a really interesting take on it as well, because it's the same as PTing, right? You can do online coaching to build muscles, sure, but it will take longer and there's less likelihood of success if you don't have someone just help you or give you a bit of feedback. You still will get an amazing result. I'm interested actually in how did you go through the journey? How did you go through the journey of positioning this app? Because with fitness, for example, you can say lose 10 pounds of fat in 12 weeks. People understand, okay, I'm going to do that. Then they probably are going to go into another program and they're going to build muscle. What is it that people want from swimming? Do they want faster times? Do they want, longer distances? What was the challenge with marketing that journey?
Right. If you think about people who swim, there are a few core challenges that they have. So, and you can probably relate to this because you've done swimming. When you swim for any duration of time, no matter how good you are, you're going to get tired. And so it's only a matter of time before you feel out of breath. For most people, they feel out of breath almost immediately. If you can make it down to the other end of the pool, you feel like you're going to die. Yeah. You're gasping for air. So when it comes to helping people, that is the number one problem. It's how do I feel like I'm not going to die when I swim one length of the pool? And that you'd think, oh, that's endurance. You just got to swim more. Really, it's technique. You need to improve your efficiency. And then we can start to talk about training and how far you go, the interval stuff that we talked about. So that's like the core. It's like we just got to help people be more efficient with their swimming, maximize their time. But when it comes to a product, that's actually not the core product. That maybe addresses the most people, and I have a lot of YouTube videos about that. But once I help you with that, you're kind of done, and maybe you're not you're not as committed, because if you can't swim one length of the pool, you probably just started.
Yeah.
So once you get a little bit more committed, now we get into the realm of, well, how do I structure my time in the pool? And so that's the value prop for us. It's getting a personalized real-time coaching without having to hire an actual human. That's the app. So I already know how to swim. I just want to make sure I'm getting the most out of my time in the water. I want to get better. I don't want to feel out of breath, but I don't want to waste my time doing the same thing over and over again. So there's boredom, there's getting faster, there's improving efficiency. And so between those three, we've addressed a majority of the population, except the people who don't know how to swim, which is why I wrote the book, and half of the human race. So that's like a whole other can of worms. That's not really our company, but that's how we address the positioning.
Yeah. And so what would you say is the biggest myth that people have about swimming that's just completely wrong? You know, if people that are just say, I'm not very good at swimming, I'm not really into swimming, what's the biggest myth that you can bust that they might be believing?
I can't swim. It's not meant for me. I mean, this is it. Like, some people think, well, I never learned, or I'm not very good, so I'm always gonna be bad at swimming, or I'm too muscular, I'm gonna sink. I sink. That's really, if we were to summarize everything, it's I'm going to sink, I can't swim.
They need to read the book.
They need to read the book, How Not to Drown. And the reality is, like, I taught my mom how to swim. Anyone can learn how to swim, and anyone can get better at swimming. I mean, there are people who swim with no limbs, no arms, missing leg, right? And they're moving through the water. People who are overweight, they can do it because it's low impact and they can't run, and their doctor tells them you got to move, but they can't do any other type of movement. Swimming is the easy way to get into it. So I think these are all the excuses or misconceptions that people have. And then there's fear, because some people are scared of getting in the water. They're scared of how they're going to look in a swimsuit. And so there's some body image awareness things. But if you can make it through all of that, swimming is one of, if not the best form of physical fitness. And obviously I'm preaching to the choir if someone already made it this far in the video, but that's really it. I mean, you can do it at any age.
Well, exactly. That was going to be my point. When I used to do swimming clubs in the UK, you'd be there in the pool at 7:30 on a Thursday night, and there'd be a lane, and there's just 80-year-olds, 75-year-olds, and they're just going backwards and forwards, and they're so good. Some of them are really hard to keep up with because they just know what they're doing, backwards and forwards. I'm interested to hear from you. Is there something in business that you believed to be true 5 years ago that you no longer believe?
A lot of things have been validated, but in terms of what I used to think was true, I used to think that there's a specific path to success. Like, if you just follow this blueprint, it's going to work no matter what. And the reality is, you can follow that blueprint and still not really see a lot of success. And that success could be defined as fulfillment, money, profitability, whatever it is. So you can do all the right things and still not be successful. Conversely, you could mess up a lot of things and still find a lot of success. And, well, why is that the case? There is some element of right place, right time, having the right, market opportunity, the right skill set, meeting the right people. And I truly believe you have a lot of control over that. You can put yourself in a position to meet the right people, to acquire the right skills, all these things. So I do believe in a lot of internal locus of control. And it's not like, oh, you're doomed if you happen to be born in this area. I definitely don't believe that. But I do think it is foolish to think that there is a clear blueprint that you follow and that's all it takes. There is some level of critical thinking that you need to have. And so you need to know when this is the wrong offer for the wrong market at the wrong time. But if you follow the blueprint, you may not identify that, and you'll keep working and working and working. And I think about our own products and the features that we have, and we've done that, and we're still doing that. We're kind of going too long in one direction. We need to cut the fat and move in a different direction.
I think that is a really interesting point, because a lot of people do exactly that. They just follow the path for so long, and they're not doing, as you say, they're not thinking critically about, at what point do I say, I haven't hit my KPI, I should move? Or even like you said at the start of MySwimPro, you went and asked the market, like, do you like this? Do you want this? What else would you want me to add into this?
Yeah.
People aren't doing that feedback loop, right? And I think that's something that is missing in entrepreneurship as a whole. I'm interested in hearing from you, actually. How did you overcome what happened in 2020 and 2021 when no one could get to swimming pools?
The pandemic was rough. I think that was a time where I probably overreacted, thinking, oh my God, we got to, go 100 hours a week. We need to do everything possible to salvage what we can and really pivot really hard. And we did have some pivots. I mean, we focused a little bit more on how we can engage our subscribers when you don't have access to a pool. And at some level, like, you can't do that because they're swimming because they don't want to do anything else. And so me trying to, run these at-home workouts, and that's what everyone was doing, it's tough because that's not why they came to us. They came to us to swim. Now, I think where I had maybe an overreaction, if you will, is that, as a business, we were sufficiently we had cash. So it's not like we were going to run out of money. I thought, oh my God, this is going to go on for 10 years. And we're definitely going to run out of money. Like, our numbers are going down every week. And at that point, we had been skyrocketing. All our numbers were just going up, 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 and up. And so this was the first period of time where I'd experienced our numbers going down. And now since then, we've had our numbers go up and down. And I felt that. So I'm a lot more emotionally controlled. Whereas in the moment, it was like, oh God, the world is ending, and you start reading the headlines. And being younger, being in my mid 20s, you see all this stuff happening, and I didn't have as much life experience. Even though no one had lived through that pandemic from 100 years ago, people had gone through bad times. They'd gone through the great financial crisis, .com bust, other problems in their lives maybe, and so you don't overreact. And I think I have a lot more sustainability maturity now, going through that experience and seeing okay, what actually matters? What do I have control over? What do I not have control over? So even though it was tough for the business, we made it through the other side. There are things we're currently going through that are difficult for the business. But having had the context of what we went through before, it's like, okay, yeah, this sucks. And what do I have control over? We need to make these changes, and let me not overreact.
Yeah. Is there anything that you learnt in that period that you were able to then change the business, like lean it out, or I don't know, use contractors rather than hire in? Is there anything you learned then that's taken you forward in your business journey, I guess?
Yeah, that was the lesson I learned too late, actually, is that we should just hire contractors that cost less than hiring full-time people. Who would have thought?
Okay. Yeah.
So, who would have thought? So that was one of them. Also just focusing, because at that point in 2019, we launched another app, MyTriathlon And the idea was, in the beginning, it's like, yeah, swimming. There are a lot of triathletes who have these other problems. And similarly, it's seeing a problem and an opportunity to fix it, and what can we do different than the other competitors. The problem is you have to understand your own capacity, and building a product is hard. And so now we started to dilute focus. So now we're doing swimming, we're doing triathlon, and then the pandemic hits and all triathlons are decimated. There are no events happening. So we made the strategic decision, look, we can't focus on so many things. I do think there was a lot of value in that application. We could have launched that, scaled that into be something, but it would have come at the expense of the swimming product. And then trying to be good at everything means you're not going to be very good at anything.
Yeah. So
that's, I think, one of the things we learned, just trying to really focus, not just on product offer, but industry as well.
I think that's really interesting. So I'm interested because we find ourselves in our business, we're in a niche as well. And I'm interested to hear from you, what do you think are the common issues or mistakes people make when they do put their business right in a niche? So swimming is a niche within sport, but again, it's like you said earlier, basketball's so bigger, football, soccer, rugby, it's so much bigger in terms of just sports and eyeballs on a sport. What do you see people doing around you when they put their business in a niche that you would recommend they don't do? Is there something that you fundamentally think is wrong when you're putting your business there?
You have to take a look in the mirror and recognize what are your expectations. Because if you put yourself in a niche and you have the expectations that we're going to scale this out beyond this niche and grow to all these different categories and become a $10 billion company, right? You're pretty much setting yourself up for failure. So you have to be willing to accept the reality of what that niche is and what's possible in that category. So if we stay, and we probably will, in swimming, we're not building a $10 billion business. That's just the truth. It's not going to happen. So if I were to go down the road of we could expand into other sports and triathlon, and then we're gonna open this apparel thing, and then we're gonna get into coffee. What? That's not how this works. You're gonna be good at nothing. So I think the reality is, if you go to a niche, you need to understand the realities of that niche, and also either fall in love with solving the problems in that category so you can actually dominate it, or be willing to go as far as you can and then move on to something else. Because if you don't actually care about that niche that much and you're just recognizing a business opportunity, you're going to fall out of love with the grind of solving that. And then you're going to get bored. And then the consistency is everything. So there are other apps that have come into swimming, and they've, other companies, they've launched hardware, they've launched software, they raise millions of dollars, and then they kind of get bored of it and it's kind of not working as well and they leave. And so we're just we're winning, quote unquote, because we've been doing it longer than everyone. And as long as we don't get complacent in what we've already built and we continue to innovate and expand on what I already mentioned about AI is taking over and, in-person human connection, this is more valuable. As long as we do that, we're going to be fine. If we stick around to what we're doing and I don't want to innovate and it's like, oh, we've been here for so long, that's how in a niche, especially, you get trampled over and someone else comes in and does the thing for you.
Yeah, well, what I think is really interesting there is that so many people will say, oh, we're in a niche, but then their content, their website, their positioning doesn't say that to the audience. They just say, oh yeah, I'm in the swimming niche. But actually, I've used swimming again as an example, but you can think about it as any founder listening to this who's like, I'm in this accounting niche only for swim businesses. And it's like, okay, you say that, but does your content say that? No, your content says, I'm an accountant or whatever.
Yeah,
I think we'll go really wrong with how they link it all together. So how impactful has content been for your business? Because obviously nearly 1 million subscribers. By the time we put this out, probably going to be 1 million subscribers on YouTube. How beneficial has that been to you as a personal brand, but also the business and its uptake in customers?
I think today having the personal brand and also the business brand builds a lot of trust. It was not as important when we got started. I never thought that I would even focus on having a personal brand, being influential in the market, in the world of YouTube. Never really thought about those things. It's sort of more, it just came up as a necessity. And now I try not to make it feel like an obligation because at some level, we do need to put out content. We need to have a brand presence. I've become an integral part of that brand. So there is a little bit of like key man risk to it, but it's fine because we're pretty small. It's not like we're, you look at the biggest companies in the world, Elon Musk, he's running a company. He's pretty important to the business.
Yeah.
Tim Cook's brand is pretty important. If they replace Tim Cook, stock price is immediately going down.
Yeah.
So whether you like those companies or not, or those people, it's important at the highest level. It's even more important the smaller that you are. And so for everyone listening, their business and brand is smaller than Tim Cook and Elon Musk. So like having your voice out there, allowing people to trust you and to build that connection. I think long form content is the best. That's why I've continued to focus on YouTube, because when someone can hear you speak and they can see that you're a real person and you have values, knowledge, insight, experiences, connections, they know what they're talking about. I want to emulate what they've created. Like I want to follow what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. And it also creates loyalty and retention. So I think now more than ever, it's really important. As AI advances, it's going to become more important because we're already listening to things that are not real in the human sense, but they are, obviously it's real language you're listening to. But someone may have never even said the thing that you're listening to. So having this, authenticity, I think is really important.
I agree. And also your YouTube has done so well. And the video quality is so good, but also you've got a lot of charisma, right? So your people want to listen to you. I'm sure you've got people come into your ecosystem who weren't even looking for swimming. They were just like, this is a nice shot video, is a cool guy who's speaking well. Now I'm going to go swim. So I think there's so many levers and also magnets to good quality content.
Right.
What is one little tip on YouTube? I won't take your whole advice book. Someone listening to this who wants to build their YouTube channel for their business in their niche, what's your one tip for them?
My advice for content creation is a little bit difficult for people to hear. Don't try as hard, because when you try too hard, you're not going to be yourself, and everyone is unique. So the more you can be yourself, the more people will resonate with that. But if you're trying to be someone else, right, you're not only people can see through that, but more importantly, you're not going to be able to keep doing that for very long. And so the advice that everyone says is you got to be consistent, do every single week, upload every Monday, Wednesday, whatever your day is. Like, cool, but if you're pretending to be someone else and you're acting, it's a lot harder to sustain that. So I always tell people, you want to find a way and a system to put in the least amount of work possible. You flip a switch, the camera's on, and you go. Everything from how you script your videos, come up with the ideas, film, edit. The more friction that you can remove, the easier it will be to just show up and do it, because that's ultimately what's going to drive results. And if you don't do that and you overthink it and you try really, really hard, you're not going to get the results, because that's exhausting. And I've been doing YouTube for over 10 years. So the reason why I can keep doing it is because I'm talking about something that I love, I have knowledge about, and I could do this for a long time because of those things. But also I've built systems where I can do it every single day or every single week. I can take a break from it. I have systems, I have a team. And it took a while to get to that point. But from day one, you need to find a way. How do I reduce the friction, do the thing that I like so I can do it not one time, not 10 times, not 100 times, but literally thousands of times.
Yeah. Put your 10,000 hours in. You can tell that you love it as well. That makes complete sense that, it's same thing we say about podcasts. Like if someone comes on a podcast and speaks for an hour, if they're a horrible person or they're not trustworthy, within...
You can't fake it.
You can't fake it.
There's so much content online of people who either do the podcast or like people like myself. You can't fake your personality.
No way.
And so, I know I have a lot of energy. I can't fake it. I didn't have any coffee today. I don't drink coffee. Like people are like, what? You didn't? It's just how you are. And that's me. Someone else shouldn't try and be me.
No, exactly.
Some people have a more mellow demeanor. They're more poetic when they speak, what have you. Great. Do that. Be yourself.
Exactly. Where do you think the world of swimming is going over the next 5 to 10 years?
There are two sides of this coin. So there's the elite performance side of swimming, which is questionable where that is. And there's the fitness side of things. So I think the fitness side of things will always be there. People will swim because it's a great form of fitness. We have a role in that in helping people get better at swimming and find the right training protocols and all that stuff. On the elite performance side, it's a little tricky because, in swimming, you can keep getting better because swimming has been advancing at a very fast rate. If you look at track, for example, the 100-meter dash, Usain Bolt, 9.58. If you compare that to 100 years ago, the winning time in the 100-meter world record was like a 10.7 or a 10.5 or whatever it was. So they dropped a second in 100 years, which is a lot, but you also got to consider the track they're running on, the shoes, the training modalities. Great. In 100 years, we dropped a second. If you compare the same duration of time in swimming, it's multiple seconds over that period of time. In the 50-meter freestyle, it's like 5 seconds. I mean, we're swimming like 30% faster over that period of time, 40% faster. And the rate of progression's not slowing down. It's the exact same. So you think like, well, surely there must be a peak. Humans can't move through the water any faster. They've been saying that the last 30 years. So, and I've done some videos about this, like trying to figure out where we asymptote, where is the limit? And now there's this new thing called the enhanced games, where some of these top athletes are taking performance-enhancing drugs, and they have entire events dedicated to that. So that's like a whole nother genre, and I wouldn't be surprised if swimming grows in that discipline. But I do think the next 5 to 10 years, people are going to keep getting faster, and I will relatively look slower and slower next to the young kids that are coming up because they have these influence, these Olympians that they can see how they trained from age 5 to 25 and how they got fast. I would like to think I'm a big part of that and showcasing, what these people are doing and how they're getting faster. And I just want to be a role model for, my younger self that I didn't have. I want, 10-year-old, 15-year-old to see this guy in his 20s, 30s, 40s that is still swimming really fast, having a blast, traveling the world, doing these experiences. And that's what I hope to pass on to the younger generation.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job of it. What I really, really hope happens with swimming is that some company gets hold of it, like a Netflix, and does a Formula One or a golf documentary, because I think the thing about swimming that I love at the Olympics is that they have all the underwater cameras and they do show a lot of it, but I just think they could do more, make it a bit easier for us to follow. Like, I was never into golf. Watched Full Swing on Netflix and I was like, oh,
now you understand it differently.
And the characters and the personalities, and I kind of know what they're talking about. I feel like swimming, even though I'm relatively into it, I still feel like they could just make it a bit more.
Swimming's tough.
So
they're wearing
tough.
a swim cap, they got goggles, their faces in the water, you can barely recognize. I did a jaywalking trivia, and I had a bunch of pictures of Olympic swimmers. And I went to the U.S. Olympic trials. Most swimmers could not identify most of these people. They got like Michael Phelps.
I bet.
They got like the big ones. But like a lot of the people that were the superstars of the event, I mean, these people traveled around the country to go to this event, and they didn't know who Caleb Dressel was, who has like 10 Olympic medals.
No, I can imagine. Do you think your parents get the irony that they couldn't swim, and now you have built this business and this personal brand and this YouTube around swimming to this size?
I don't think so, actually, but I don't think it even matters.
No, of course.
Like, I think at this point they're just, I like to think they're proud of me. I'm really thankful for all the opportunities that I was able to have, and without them I wouldn't be able to be sitting here with you today. Absolutely.
Fares, it's been absolutely amazing to talk to you, actually. Where can people find you? Obviously, there's YouTube, but the book, where can they find you online if they've liked this conversation?
Yeah, they just go to, Google, YouTube, search my name, Instagram, always putting out content around swimming, a little bit of entrepreneurship. And if you want to see what it looks like to swim around the world, this is the right place to check it out.
And go to one of your events, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully that'd be awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I want to take a second to speak about our sponsor, Pith and Stem, who we are thrilled to have on this journey with us. As someone who is always looking for ways to improve my healthy hustle, Pith and Stem's drop-top desk stood out to me as the best full work-from-home solution on the market. The world of work from home is changing, and a laptop or screen perched on your lap or dining room table isn't enough anymore. It's imperative that we have a solution at home that matches our productivity station that we can have in our office. But of course, homes weren't made to be worked in, and not all of us want a dedicated study. That's why I'm so happy that Pith and Stem created this perfect solution. They designed this desk with both the needs of the professional and their home in mind. It's perfect because it allows me to have a full productivity station that suits my needs and helps me get the most out of every minute that I spend at it, not only so I work comfortably, but that I actually enjoy it. And the best thing about DropTop, I can close and lock it at the end of the day to keep work and home separate. And it looks awesome on the wall. You can get your DropTop desk anywhere in the world from pithandstem.com or just Google DropTop and you'll find it pretty quickly.